What's up, YouTube? Eugene here, and I've got a very special guest. For those that have been watching for a long time, you're going to remember this face. For the new people, this is Maria Diarrhea.
Nice intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, a lot of people have been asking for you, wondering where you have been. A lot of people have been insinuating, she left him. They're divorced. I really don't know how to label this or even want to put a status on it because this is a story that has no conclusion to it yet. This is an ongoing story. Right? There's no end to this story yet. So we have separated, we separated homes, and we've spent the last 15 months apart, but we remain very supportive of each other. Mm-hmm. We've both grown a lot in the last 15 months, spiritually, self-awareness wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of work.
And it's been a very interesting process for me. It's actually been one of the most difficult, but also most rewarding processes of my life. A lot of change, there's been a lot of suffering, but going into that pain and suffering, that's where the growth takes place. So firstly, I do want to thank you so much for, I've learned so much from you. You've been my biggest teacher in my life. Looking at all the teachers I've had in school, in college, or wherever I've gone, or people that I've mentored at work, you're the one person that has taught me the absolute most in life. And I knew even from when we first met, you had this awareness to you. You had this ability to read people and things, and you'd be able to read myself better than I was able to, which I always found really strange, which goes to show how distracted I really was from myself, how disconnected I was from my own self.
You're very welcome. I don't think I started off this journey to be your teacher in any way whatsoever. I think that's just, what happens in life. We come across certain individuals that will either guide us in the right direction or take us to a very dark spot. And so this journey has been probably one of the hardest things that I've gone through personally, and I've gone through some hard stuff. So for me, this was necessary. That's the only way, that's the simplest way that I can describe this, is this was necessary, not just for Eugene, but for the both of us. And like Eugene said, this is a very painful process, I think, for both of us. However, so much good has come from that pain, from that very dark spot that I know both of us sat in for a while. That's for sure. And I too am grateful for this, because I think if it wasn't for me meeting Eugene and him kind of holding up the mirror in some areas that I needed to work on, I would have been kind of stuck in the same cycle. So we both have very different kind of takeaways from this separation in our relationship. For you, I think it was more of personal awareness,
finding self.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think that's what relationships are all about. Personal relationships, romantic relationships, work relationships, friend relationships. Everything is really a mirror for you to bring up triggers and to see what makes you uncomfortable, and it's going into that uncomfort is where you really grow. And we both suffered broken hearts. This is a painful process for both of us. Yeah. And like you said, it was necessary. For me, there's two ways you can heal a broken heart. You can distract yourself from it, You can go out and casually have sex and binge on drugs, alcohol, just fill yourself with external luxury objects. Or the proper way would be to actually go into that pain, go into that broken heart, and feel every ounce of it. And that's really, what I've been doing, is sitting here and feeling that, like, every single emotion. And there's just so much beauty in a broken heart. I've said before, it's one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. Just feeling that raw, that hurt, that pain. Such a painful process, but such a beautiful one at the same time. It probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but believe me, it's both painful and there's a lot of growth involved at the same time.
Yeah. And the first example kind of you gave of healing, of that going out and, being kind of destructive.
Medicating.
And it's not actual true healing.
No, it's a distraction.
It's a Band-Aid solution. And eventually, that wound is going to continue to get infected, continue to fester, and you walk through life carrying that wound with you, to the next relationship, right? And so
absolutely, because there's going to be times where you do find yourself alone and you don't have anything to medicate, and then those wounds eventually will catch up to you, and you'll end up suffering in another way,
and hurting other people
in that process
as well. So for me, my experience was vastly different. I think for me, mine was about living my life to the fullest, and I knew that, I wasn't going to be able to do that being with Eugene kind of in the state that he was in. And life for me became very unbearable. It wasn't that, there was no love there. It had nothing to do with that. It was teaching myself to love me more than,
self-love.
Than my partner or my kids, and doing what I know internally is right for me. And I think that was a hard thing for a lot of people to understand, especially like our families and our friends.
Because we got along so great, and we had actually a really great relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone was really confused by that. Like, people who know us well just were like, where did this come from?
Right, it was a shock for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think they assumed like something terrible had happened in the relationship, like one of us cheated on one another, or there was something else there, and it wasn't. It was just that I kind of had to make a choice for both of us, because I knew that if I didn't make that choice, Eugene was never going to kind of pull the trigger, and he was just going to continue on suffering.
Right.
And so
I think, for me, it was a lot of it was I was, distracted from self. I had a disconnection from my true self. I didn't feel, I didn't, go into my emotions. I ignored a lot of that. And that's really this misconception that's more towards boys than girls. Young boys growing up, they're always told, don't cry, you don't feel your emotions. Strong boys don't cry. Crying is for wussies or sissies or girls. And, that's how I grew up. So I really distracted myself from that. I never cried. I never felt emotions. Anything ever came up, I'd be like, I would ignore that. And even though I would feel the pain inside, I try to ignore it by distracting myself with, external devices. And then when things would come up for you, I'd be like, you're not hurting. You're not feeling that. That's not real. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it, because that's how I felt. Do you know what I mean?
And that's how you dealt with it.
And that's how I dealt with it.
Avoid.
I was a voider,
I don't think you're the only one. I think there's a lot of people that live in this state.
I think there's a lot of men that live like that. And now from this whole process, the lesson for me has been, when my children come to me and, they have something they want to talk about, I put whatever I'm doing down and I give them my full attention. And I said, all right, what is it? And even if it's the smallest thing, and I think, oh boy, like, this is the way they're feeling. So I can't, I can't take that feeling away from them. I have to acknowledge, whatever it is, their pain or their emotion, and make it real, and find a way to make them feel better at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you learn the most out of this process so far?
To feel. Now I feel every little thing. I've sat here and I've probably spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours meditating and just connecting to who I am, like, not as a man or a father or a tool and die maker or a 45-year-old person. Just this all I am is consciousness, like this awareness, this presence, and everything else doesn't really matter. We've been so bombarded by the brainwashing from media, from television, from these beliefs, these political beliefs, that you're supposed to side with one political thing, or even religious beliefs, like you need to believe in this or you're gonna be punished, or
it's just identity,
right? It's all like just this falseness, stuff that isn't real or has no bearing, and it's just things to disconnect you from who you are and what you feel. And now I've really become, like, just really connected with my breath, with breathing, with the earth, with nature, with animals, just with all things beauty. I try and find beauty in everything I see. I come home from work and there's this pine tree outside of my house, and there's this little pine cone growing, and I walk out the long way and I come by and I just kind of stop and I say hello to the pine cone, and I give it a little rub, and I feel connected to earth. It makes me so happy just saying hello to that little pine cone, and then I go inside for the rest of the night. So I just feel really connected to who I am and my purpose. And now I've got goals and I've got dreams and I've got passions, things that I never cared about before. I would just get up every day. I would go to the same job. I would talk to the same people. We would make the same jokes. I'd go home and the process would repeat tomorrow.
Yep.
And now, I feel now I've shed that skin.
Yep.
The past 15 months, I feel like a completely different person. I feel like there's hope. I feel like if I have a dream, I'm going to go for it, and that's what I'm doing.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you have changed a lot, and I probably am the most proud of you, I would say, just because I've been able to kind of sit on the sidelines and watch you kind of do the work for yourself. In our relationship, I was constantly the fixer. I wanted to do whatever I could to possibly, fix any kind of challenges that we had on our individual levels as a couple. And what I've learned is that everyone has their own kind of path and lessons that they have to learn, and you can't force that. I mean, you can suggest and you can support, but ultimately the work has to come from that individual, right? And so for me, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned over the last year and a half or whatever it has been, is to kind of look at the experiences I've had, the belief systems I've created for myself, or just through experience, and question those beliefs and really stop looking into the past and my past experiences and kind of playing them over in my mind in the present time, because through our relationship there has definitely been some challenges. There's been some people on the outside externally constantly trying to throw a wrench into our relationship, and I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges that we had. And being able to move from those experiences and still focus on kind of this present moment that we have in front of us and not be thrown off by that, not have our choices and our decisions being guided because of external circumstances. So for me, that was the biggest lesson. I know that in being in a relationship with you, because of some of the things that you had in your own life, that kind of pushed me in a direction of hiding myself,
making yourself smaller,
making myself smaller in order to avoid attention or in order to
make other people uncomfortable.
And so that really was the one thing that I think, out of everything that happened in our relationship, that was the one thing that bothered me, was the fact that I allowed external circumstances or external people have such an influence on our relationship and the choices that I made on a personal level, on a business level, on a relationship level. And that will never happen again, ever, period. And I think that's the same thing with Eugene as well, having these, these goals and these ambitions, and not believing that they're possible, out of fear of what other people will think, fear of the repercussions of following through with what he knows is right for himself. And so
listening to a lot of people and their negative beliefs, that typically would have held me back to the point where I wouldn't even go and start anything, because how can I possibly accomplish it? Because nobody else believes in me, right? And all I need is for myself to believe in what I want to do. But going back to what you were just saying, I think the biggest thing for me, and one of the biggest learning lessons has been, you have always been like my voice of truth. And being in a relationship, what I think what a lot of people are looking for in a partner is somebody that's going to be agreeable with them and agree with everything that they say and do, and let them get away with stuff. And you were always that person that never let me get away with anything. And I wanted you to be agreeable, and I wanted you to say, oh yeah, that's really cool, Eugene, like go and throw a Christmas tree out of the window, because there's nothing wrong with that. Well, yes, there's a lot of wrong with that. And you were that voice for me. And in those voices, I kept learning and like, I know throwing a tree out of the window is not right, but like, that's a small example. But there were just
that's
so many other examples where you would be like, Eugene, that's not really right. I don't agree with that, and I'm not going to stand for that. So you were always that person. You were that voice of reason, and instead of being agreeable because you're my partner, you'd be like, no, that's not right. So that's something that I always appreciated and admired from you,
That's good. I'm glad. Because I think that naturally, when we love and care for someone, and if we feel like they're being mistreated or someone's taking advantage of them, I think it's our duty to be sometimes a backbone for those people. I've always been like, people can say whatever they want about me all day long. It doesn't really affect me in any way whatsoever. But there's nothing more that pisses me off is when, someone kind of hurts or takes advantage of people that I care about. I instantly, like, mama bear instinct comes out, and I'm like, I'm a nightmare for those people. And so, I just wanted to understand that a lot of the people that he had around him were trying to control and dictate how he lived, were pushing their own belief systems on him. And I was just encouraging him to think for himself, and instead of suppressing all of those feelings and emotions, because I knew to the core Eugene got it, he understood it, but he just didn't have the courage to kind of follow through with that.
I had this veil over me of the veil of unconsciousness. I was living like that paradigm of the Matrix. It was literally all these beliefs that you learn on television from Hollywood. Like, you watch these Hollywood romances, and when they when they try and show two people in love. It's like two people that are all over each other. They're kissing and everything is always so romantic and hunky-dory, and that's not really love at all. It's this, this misrepresentation of love.
Huge.
Right.
It's so much more than that. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, this has been a really positive experience. When you add the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic, I cringe kind of sometimes when I say this, because I don't want to be dismissive of any kind of hardship that other people are going through. I know that this pandemic has turned people's lives upside down. People have lost loved ones because of this. Their businesses have closed overnight, and I always try to find the silver lining in everything. And I think for me, more than anything, is that this pandemic has kind of forced us into stillness, right? And it puts you in a spot where you're kind of left with your thoughts. When you take away the ability for people to distract themselves, go out, go drink, go hang out with their friends, the typical things that we would normally do, it forces you to get comfortable with some of those uncomfortable thoughts that kind of bubble to the surface. And so my takeaway from this was, it's just, like I said, forced me to I think heal and grow even faster than I normally would have.
Yeah, and that's really how you find your true self. You take away all the distractions and you sit in your own uncomfort. So many people can't even sit alone for 2 minutes without looking at their cell phone, without turning on the television, without going online or whatever it is, calling somebody or even, addicted to their own thoughts, their own this narrative that they're so unlucky, nothing good ever happens to me. And to get connected, you sit alone, you close your eyes, you sit alone, you turn all that stuff off, and things will start to bubble up for you. You just kind of sit there in the present moment and you start feeling this. Oh, where's that coming from? And these are things that I would normally have avoided those feelings.
Stuffed down.
Right. I would stuff them. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, this is uncomfortable. I'm going to go and order a perfume to go make myself feel better, because I don't want to deal with whatever it is I'm feeling down there.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's just this never-ending cycle.
I think it's important to get comfortable with those emotions. I literally just filmed like a section in one of my courses, and I'm talking about emotions and getting comfortable with bubbles to the surface, and really kind of look at what is in front of you and pay attention to it and acknowledge it, because I think far too often we are ruled by our emotions. If things don't go our way, we go crazy, we go kind of off the rocker, and that tends to be when we really make poor choices, right? And so I think it's really important to understand emotions and to kind of keep them in check. And oftentimes the stuff that we tell ourselves isn't true, right? These are just belief systems that we've picked up along the way and we have absorbed along the way. And so when those things do come up, like my life sucks, I hear this all the time, especially in the beginning, of this journey. My life sucks because my ex-wife or my ex-husband, fill in the blank, da-da-da-da-da. And I think it's important for people to really take ownership. Everything that has happened in your life in this present moment is 100% your responsibility. You have to be accountable for your actions and also inactions. We have to understand that we've played a part in that story. And I think a lot of people don't like that because that's uncomfortable for them. They don't want to take that on.
It's just always easier to blame somebody else. It's easier to
blame someone else, right? And so, if you can own all of those emotions, if you can own exactly where you are, I think the healing process it's painful. It definitely is painful, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you've gotten closer to understanding, your thoughts and the beliefs that you carry with you, and ask, are they helping me? Are those past experience I had, am I bringing them into my present reality? And I think that was my biggest thing. That's what I struggled with the most, because I'm a big believer in, watch people's behavior. There's a pattern there,
Actions
right?
speak louder than
Actions
words.
speak louder than words. I don't care if you tell me you're the best person on earth. I'm going to watch to see if your actions kind of follow suit. So sometimes when we have these negative experiences, it could be a situation or it can be with a specific person, it's hard to let go of that. It's hard to let go of that memory, and stop it from influencing where you kind of are right now. And so for me, I know that when I was healing in the beginning, all that I went to was all of the bad experiences that I had with Eugene, and not the positive experiences. And I kept playing those negative experiences over and over again, and I really struggled in my healing process. That's for sure, because I definitely had a role to play in where I was at that present time. And so, I decided that if I wanted to change how I feel and how I think, I was going to have to stop reverting back to my old, thought process.
Habits.
And my old, exactly, the habits that I had.
And create new habits.
And so the things that used to trigger me so hard don't even faze me now. And I kind of laugh at how ridiculous it seems. Right. But at that present time, it was just such a highly charged experience for me. And I'm just glad that I am here in this space right now.
Right. And becoming conscious and present in the moment has become, one of the greatest freedoms for me. It's been like this escape from my own mental prison. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so happy to, have experienced the last 15 months and gone through this, as painful as it was. It's I feel like I've got freedom for the first time in my life, for myself, awesome. Mentally. I feel like I'm in a good place, and if I can accomplish anything if I put my mind to it, and that's what I want to do.
And so it
is I've got goals and dreams now, and I feel free.
Super sexy. Because I'm a very goal-oriented person.
Yes, you are.
I always believe in striving to be a better human, but also, most importantly, pushing us out of our comfort zone. And Eugene definitely was not one of those people. He was extremely uncomfortable by my growth. I think it triggered him a lot. And he's like, why can't you just be satisfied? Why can't you just stop here? And that's just not how life is.
It was just take what life gives you, kind of.
Unacceptable. Yeah. So
instead of creating your own life, I'd be like, oh, this is happening to me today. I'm going to accept it and deal with it, instead of creating my own path. You know what I mean?
I do. I absolutely do. So I think overall, this has been a good experience for us. I know a lot of people had a lot of questions, and up until now, I wasn't, really comfortable with talking about this process, because I was still healing, I was still reflecting, and
yeah, I think, in order for us to connect, however this is going to end, we don't know. I don't have an attachment, whatever happens. You may end up with somebody else. And if you do, I'm going to be, I'm going to be happy for you. And I'm just going to wish the absolute best.
Yeah.
We may end up together again, but if we do, it's going to be in the way that we're both connected to ourselves. Yeah. Before we can connect to each other, I need to be connected to myself. You need to be connected to yourself.
Yeah.
You need to have that I know you already have it. It was me that was missing it. That self-respect, that self-love, that connection. In order for me to connect with you, I need to be connected to myself, right? And that's how two people come together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy doing this type of work, that's for sure. And I know that I've I'm like you, I agree. I've kind of moved into this space where I'm not fixated on an end result. Every day I wake up and I just focus on being better than the day before and being more aware, and whatever it is that bubbles up for me, instead of shying away and hiding from that, just looking at that thought and that belief and asking myself, is this true, or is this just something that you've come up with your mind? And 99% of the time
we're creating shit.
We're creating these things. And so I think there's so much power in being completely okay with the unknown. And I think that is a space that makes most people uncomfortable. I know that
because they want to control an outcome.
Right. Yeah. You're trying
that's
to
where lies start coming from. Right. Yeah. That's where lies start from.
Yeah.
Just trying to control other people.
And not
or having
only
them believe certain things.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it. But I also think of just controlling kind of, the outcome so that we get the perfect result that we're looking for. And I think that, a lot of people believe when circumstances happen, they say, this has happened to me instead of this has happened for me. And I think that when I focus on that every single day, when things don't necessarily go the way that I plan them to go, I'm like, there's a lesson in this. This has happened for me. It hasn't happened to me. I'm not a victim. Okay, I'm not a victim. So when you say this has happened to me, you're coming from that perspective that you're a victim, that you have bad luck. You're reinforcing something else. And so, like you said, we have no clue where the road will take us. Regardless, I will always be here, to support Eugene. And if that, like you said, happens to be with someone else, I'm okay with that. And I want to make sure that regardless of where it is that we end up, that we're supportive of one another. And if it's us with other people, we're supportive of those relationships as well. And being, a positive, imprint on one another's life, not a negative experience. Yeah. So that's it.
Bravo. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride, a lot of ups and downs, but mostly, it ended up a huge up. There's a big swing.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And we'll see you soon. We're going to do a couple of videos, some perfume related videos, but I imagine we'll see you, in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drop a comment down below. Always enjoy reading your comments. Say hello to Maria, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.